My name's Nate. I run Jesus People SF. Today I want to respond to some of the response that has come out about Mr. Alistair Begg's comments on should you, as a Christian, attend the wedding of a transgender or homosexual person who is getting married to someone of the same sex biologically from their birth. And so the response has been pretty interesting. And the person I want to respond to today is Mr. Russell Moore. Now, a little bit of backstory about me and Russell Moore. I don't know him personally. I have met him once. I used to be a student at Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. And so as I was going to study or read or whatever I was doing, I went to a local coffee shop that was walking distance from my house. And there was Russell Moore. He was just waiting there before a meeting. Seemed like a nice guy at the time. And I had a pretty good view of him at the time because I was very anti-Donald Trump at the time, personally, just me speaking for my own views. And Russell Moore did put up a big fight about whether Christians should be supporting Donald Trump in that 2016 campaign. Now, since that time, it appears that Russell Moore has taken a lot more left-leaning positions, both theologically and politically, since that time, and he enjoys a great bit of favor by the political left, not to mention the theological left. And so he gets op-eds in the Washington Post, the New York Times, pretty much whatever he wants to do as far as mainstream media and the institutional press, he can do it because he has their favor. So today, let's see, on the 2nd of February, Russell Moore posted a op-ed in Christianity Today, which he is the editor-in-chief. And so I want to respond to some of the arguments he raises in that op-ed. We can look at it right here, hopefully, technical issues notwithstanding. So here we go. Alistair Begg meets the politically correct. Now here's the interesting thing that he says about the response to Mr. Begg. He says that mob mentality is in effect here. He's claiming that the people who want to write Mr. Begg out of their lives are acting in a mobbish way or a mob mentality, like groupthink, right? Groupthink. Here's the problem with that insinuation, though. Russell Moore actually takes the position in this article that Begg has taken the wrong side. Now, Russell Moore parses his own position as being one of his own conscience, right? He thinks this is a personal issue for himself. He needs to decide this for me, Russell Moore, so to speak. But the problem with his logic is that Mr. Begg is a national teacher on a national platform. And he is laying down categories of thinking that are intended to be for a wider audience. He's not doing this in a private conversation at his assembly. He's doing this over national radio, right? So he wants other people to act this way. And in fact, in his response to the response, after people started, quote, canceling, unquote, was to dig in his heels. And he's lost quite a few friends over this among his pals at John MacArthur's camp and stuff. And he in response preached a sermon on, quote, the compassion of Jesus. So let's look at this article. We're just going to go over a few highlights here. First of all, Russell Moore complains that evangelicals are not pissed off enough about rapists in their midst. And Paul Pressler apparently is a very significant Southern Baptist Convention person who has been accused, and apparently there's some substance to the accusations about some kind of sexual misconduct. Here's the problem, though. Is Paul Pressler a public figure in evangelicalism? Does he have a spiritual reputation, a spiritual authority in his public teaching? It's not quite the same thing as Mr. Begg. And so certainly, I agree, we should be pissed off when people in evangelicalism conduct themselves wrongly. However, This is something of apples and oranges. So I like if Russell Moore just wants us to be pissed off that someone like Paul Pressler is conducting horrible things, then sure, yeah, I'm pissed. I'm pissed about it. What do you want? That doesn't change the situation about Mr. Begg, right? So, and he says, people are accusing Alistair Begg of being a sellout to the spirit of the age. And he says that the reason that he and Begg disagree is because of what a wedding is. Interesting. That sounds like a very foundational and a very serious disagreement, does it not? A wedding is a pretty basic thing to what a society should be, not to mention how the church should behave in the world. And so but even after he says they disagree on something as fundamental as what a wedding is, he then goes on to say that he doesn't want to criticize Mr. Begg personally because he considers his views of weddings a little strict. And here's where Moore transitions his objection into the following category. This is one of those adiaphora things, as the Bible uses. The Greek word basically means things that are not primary to our fellowship or disfellowship of others. This adiaphora position basically says, in essentials, we all have to be on the same page. But on the tertiary things, modes of baptism, different, whether you use musical instruments in worship, like these are adiaphora, it's free for the conscience. But the problem is that Mr. Begg has encouraged Christendom, not just a Christian, because he brought this into the public with his radio address, with his discussing of this over the radio. He has brought this as a commendation for Christendom at large. He considers his ministry, according to its title, Truth for Life. So presumably what Alistair Begg says on Truth for Life is considered to be something true that you should apply to your life. Am I right? Or else why was it over the radio? Why was this not just a private conversation? At least, in his congregation, if not private beyond that. But no, he considers this to be good advice for all Christianity. That's why he did it. So here's the problem. Moore is going to say, I have some very particular views on weddings. And he's going to go on to say, my particular view is that people in the congregation at a wedding are participating in the matrimonial ceremony with the person being married, and because of my particular personal take on what weddings are. For that reason, I disagree with Mr. Begg and can't participate with him in this advice he gave to someone who wanted to know, should I go to my relative's same-sex and or transgender wedding? So, the irony is that Mr. Begg is going to also take the position that when someone is thinking about whether to go to a wedding, he takes the position that the people, that when you go to such a thing, you are sending the message that you're in agreement with it, that it's a good thing. And he's even going to say, hey, I feel great about the idea of saying Happy Ramadan or Happy Diwali, if I'm saying that right. These festivals of other religions. He feels okay with that, but at the same time, he's using the same arguments of someone that would not be okay with sending the wrong message. So I'm going to scroll down in this article. He says, I just don't want to play the weaker brother. That's why I don't want to lay this down as a law. It's just my conscience. It's just me, Russell Moore, someone with great influence in evangelicalism over the flagship periodical of evangelicalism. It's just me. I don't want to lay this down as a law for other people because, hey, it's just me. And he says, this is not about refusing to be around other people. Russell Moore, again, speaking about why he would not go to a same-sex or transgender wedding. It's not because I don't want to be around sinners. I love that, right? That's what Russell Moore is implying here. That people at large, not Russell Moore who takes this conscience position, but people at large who don't want to have some public teacher who has no authority or influence over their life, as someone just on the radio, who want to write that person out, that they're wrong because their position is because they don't want to be around sinners. It is slander, right? Because they're using the same argumentation that Russell Moore says is only for me and my conscience. And the fact that being a part of a wedding is to send a message of approval and agreement. So here he says, my conscience is completely unhindered. Surprise, that he can say Happy Ramadan or Happy Diwali. Okay? So you know where Russell Moore stands with his conscience on that issue. And he says, to violate your conscience is a sin, which happens to be absolutely correct, according to Romans, I think it's 13, Romans 12. Whoever participates in something without faith is sin. So, but here's the problem. In Russell Moore's position as a public figure, he's assuming on Begg's motivations here. He says Begg was not trying to compromise or condemn. Well, who cares what he was trying to do? He did compromise. This position that Begg has advocated for his congregation and for this person who asked him for advice is compromise. Period. End of story. And he says that ultimately the people who are so offended by Mr. Begg advocating this unbiblical and unfaithful position are a mob. But let's get really clear here. Like, who is Mr. Begg for like me, Joe Schmo, in the Christian world? Who is he? He's just some dude on the radio or some dude on the internet or some dude who goes to conferences. He has zero authority over me. He's not my pastor. So he doesn't have any legitimate spiritual authority over me. So if I want to cancel him for whatever reason, it doesn't make me a mob. It makes me logical. In fact, if you're going to have public teachers like John MacArthur or John Piper or Billy Graham or whoever, these people you can't possibly know what their spiritual lives are individually, off the camera, off the microphone. If you're going to have these people in your lives, you should be really picky, right? You shouldn't be like, oh, we should be so gracious. We should let the bar be really low for such people. No. For a public figure whose only details about their lives are the things that make it to camera or microphone or news stories, and you want to set the bar low for that? Really? Like, you don't even know what they do in their private lives. You don't know anything about them. But when they make such a humongous blunder on such a basic topic that a 5-year-old in the Christian faith should be able to ace with flying colors. This is not like one of those super hard to parse issues. If someone who's been in ministry for decades and decades screws it up to this level and you want to write them out of your life, that's wisdom. That is not mob mentality. Because if you have any public teachers whatsoever, you should be utterly critical and utterly picky, because these people are sowing seed with their teaching, right? And so when you see something that's that bad, it's a really easy write it off, right? And I mean, let's get real about what a mob is, right? A mob is like something that arrested Jesus with pitchforks and torches, right? Something that wants to do violence. Writing a public figure out of your life because he makes such a stupid mistake, and after making it refuses to repent or recant or whatever, it's a super easy decision. It's very logical. We don't intend any physical anything to Mr. Begg, right? We're just talking about simple, who do I want in the circle of people I consider good Bible teachers, right? And if Begg is making blunders, not repenting on something that's clearly a big biblical issue on what is marriage and how should you proceed regarding practical things about marriage, dude, write the guy off. He doesn't belong in your inner circle. He does not belong in your life. He has no right to you. He has no right to your private time of how you spend your time in your car when you're driving along. You do not have to listen to Truth for Life. You do not have to read his books. You do not have to go to Shepherd's Conference and listen to him if he was still involved in that, which he's not, by the way. So write him out of your life. It does not make you a mob. It just makes you smart. It makes you someone that is picky about who you consider someone teaching the truth. As Begg's show says, truth for life. Come on, man. Like, let's be really picky. If he's veering off somewhere away from biblical truth, let's write him out of our life. That's all I got to say. Thanks.